Alright, now we're talking. The Eagles brought in one of the top safety prospects in the class, and he's a Philly dog. However, there's a couple concerning takeaways that could make Howie Roseman's decision difficult. In this video, I'll cover what that is, plus go over the crazy rumors about TJ Watt and his chances joining the Birds. Also, we may have a dark horse candidate emerging for the other cornerback spot. And no, this other idea for Jalen Ramsey is not it. Also, how about the latest top 30 visits? So let's talk about those. Howie shared his thoughts on trading up in the draft, and BG clarified his comments about being 90% retired. So let's get into it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Tax day is here, and you know what that means. The Eagles have one more day to host top 30 visits. Yeah, so for those who may not be aware, the NFL's final day for teams to host players is April 16th. And considering that Philly hasn't announced all 30 guys yet, they'd better get busy.
We're running out of time.
Well, that's not necessarily the case. Because while they've only got one day remaining to host players, the more than likely reality is that Howie Roseman's done a good job to keep a couple visits under wraps. Now, I personally have a couple different guys that I hope ended up making their way to Philly over the last several weeks. However, when it comes to a guy like Penn State linebacker Kobe King, that bit of news is already out the bag, after the Eagles hosted the 22-year-old along with at least 6 other teams. By the way, if you're not aware of this guy's game, you definitely should be, since multiple NFL scouts told NFL writer Aaron Wilson that King made himself some money thanks to his testing and top 30 visits. Granted, we're talking about a linebacker who's 6'1", 248 pounds and ran a 4.6 40 while repping out 26 reps on the bench press. Of course, sure, if you compare that to other linebackers in the class, that's kind of like middle of the pack. Although the area he makes up for it is in his short area burst and acceleration. Like, King is a big, productive inside linebacker who no doubt makes up for a bit of athletic or speed limitations. And I mean, considering he ended up making 97 tackles, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble last season, when it comes to stopping the run, that's exactly where the dude thrives. With draft analyst Lance Zierlein saying he's got the prototypical Big Mike linebacker build, and he knows how to leverage his gap with a firm base so that he can get his licks in as a striker and a tackler.
So that's what opening up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.
Okay, seriously though, watching King's tape and thinking about the Eagles, he could definitely be a really good addition when it comes to adding depth to the linebacker room. Although I will say, King is more than likely a 4th or 5th round pick due to the fact that he isn't the best in open field and is below average in man coverage. Yet maybe the biggest component for Philly taking him is that he can definitely play all-around special teams, so a 5th round flyer, I'd love the pick. Now, before I get into this next topic, do me a favor and hit the like button, and then make sure to subscribe to the channel because we're just about 1,000 subscribers away from me giving away this signed Cooper DeJean helmet to one lucky subscriber. Reminder, it's free and doesn't cost you anything to go down there and hit the sub button. Although the idea of drafting Georgia safety Malaki Starks might cost a good bit for Howie to move up. Yes, I know there's some who think Starks could fall down further on the draft board for teams due to his lack of athleticism from the testing drills. But come on, we're talking about a 21-year-old All-American with an insane amount of experience playing in big-time games and making big-time plays. And I'm just saying, for me, it comes down to football IQ, and this dude absolutely has it. Plus, we're talking about Philly dogs here, and who doesn't want another one to the roster? Granted, be that as it may, there's a large amount of people who don't see the Eagles taking Starks or certainly not trading up for him. Because believe it or not, the Birds have never, and yes, I said never, drafted a safety in the first round in team history. Now, hopefully that's not you, but if you've fallen for one of these scams or one of the thousands of posers that are out there and you're not sure if your personal information is safe, then you should definitely check out the sponsor of today's video, Aura. Look, I think we all know, in this day and age of scary AI and hackers, you can't be too careful. And with Aura, the best part is they'll identify data brokers exposing your info and submit opt-out requests for you. But they also filter incoming text messages and calls so you don't have to worry about what's fake and what's real. And even better, it's really easy to set up so you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, and identity theft insurance. You get everything at one affordable price. By the way, while we're talking about cost, Aura offers every adult on the account up to 5 adults $1 million in identity theft insurance to cover fees and losses in case something happened. So I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches, and if you don't want to either, then you can go to aura.com/Philly to try 2 weeks for free, or just click the link in the description. Alright, back to the Malaki Starks argument. Sure, the Birds haven't ever taken a safety, yet they hadn't taken a cornerback in the first round in 22 years prior to last year. So I think it's safe to say Howie isn't above bucking the trend. At the same time, you're right. You're probably saying, dude, Josh, you were telling us just last year that Saquon Barkley was never going to happen because Howie doesn't do that.
I know I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Look, I learned my lesson, and to be fair, I think a lot of people did. Just like those who bought into the whole idea of Howie not valuing the linebacker position right up until he made Zach Bond the 4th highest paid linebacker in the league this offseason. Which, if you go back to what owner Jeffrey Lurie said to Zach Berman, it's all about evolving. With Lurie saying you never want to be part of the consensus, yet you have to be genuine to yourself and do what's exceptional while avoiding risk aversion. However, at the same time, the Birds owner did emphasize making calculated decisions and not necessarily doing things because they're popular. Like seriously, take those comments and look at just recently, there weren't exactly an overwhelming majority who've raved about the Jalix Hunt pick. But look how that one's turned out so far. Or the same for adding Mekhi Becton to the roster. Yet when you dig a little bit deeper, the one thing that nearly every single pick or move has had over the last couple years is getting guys that are crazy athletic. So check it out. Shout out to Anthony DeBona for really insightful info, but since 2020, the Eagles have drafted just one player that have had a relative athletic score lower than 8 in the first 4 rounds of the NFL draft. And since 2022, 17 of Philadelphia's 18 draft picks had an RAS score of 8 or higher. All right, so those are some serious trends, but then you also consider the fact that over the last 2 drafts, the first 3 selections in each draft have had top 30 visits with the Eagles, and the formula is pretty simple. Like your boy Joey said, an RAS of more than 8 plus a top 30 visit equals an extremely high probability that the Birds will select you.
Because it works. That's the formula.
By the way, the only pick that didn't fall in those categories that I mentioned since 2022 was Jalen Reagor.
I've heard enough.
I don't blame you. Stick with that methodology because whoever wants to experience the Jalen Reagor situation again. Except here's the thing. If you follow that formula precisely, then that means you're out on Malaki Starks. After all, when it came to his relative athletic score, the 21-year-old barely got over a 5 based on his testing. I mean, honestly, think about it. When you put all those things under consideration, does that change or impact your thoughts on Starks? Personally, I'd call Starks very much an outlier or at least a valid reason to go against the traditional standard, especially for the reasons college football and NFL draft analyst Joel Klatt shared.
Listen, it's very rare that a guy can roll in as a freshman and just start for Kirby Smart because of the intricacies of that defense. You know, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, you put them in the same camp in that respect. And Malaki started something like 42 games, so like right away as a true freshman, has been an All-American since he stepped foot on campus, a leader.
Go.
Like I love, like Malaki is a great player. I really like Malaki Starks.
Like I said, Starks has all the football knowledge and IQ you could want. Plus, while we're making the case for either picking him or not picking him, the Georgia Bulldog will actually be in attendance for the first round of the NFL draft. And if you're wondering why the heck that matters, Anthony DeBona pointed out that in the last 4 years, Philly has used their first pick on a player that was actually in attendance at the NFL draft. So, I mean, you tell me, will the Eagles finally take a safety in the first round or not? And also, while you're letting me know that, how about this list of names from confirmed players that'll be in attendance? Like, come on, do any of those guys look like potential Eagles more than Malaki Starks? Anyway, sticking with the top 30 visits for a moment, Anthony DeBona broke the news that Philly hosted another offensive lineman in West Virginia's Wyatt Milum. And in case you're not aware, Milum was a 4-year starter at West Virginia with experience playing at both left tackle and right tackle. Plus, since we just went over the entire athletic score and the meaning for the Birds, yes, he checks in slightly above an 8 on that scale. So naturally, the odds of him being an Eagle bump up exponentially.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Absolutely there is. Like, this dude is 23 years old, and at 6'6", 317 pounds, he played nearly 1,200 pass blocking snaps at left tackle over a 3-year period and didn't allow a single sack. Yet to be fair, all it took was one rep from Boston College's Donovan Ezeraku at the Senior Bowl to break that streak. So who knows if that hype was overinflated. Still, the impressive part is that most scouts tend to agree that the best facet of his game might actually be his run blocking. And naturally, you'd see a guy at his size and think, he's going to be a tackle, but he's actually got really short arms comparatively to play tackle at the next level, which is why several members have suggested he make the move inside to get the most out of his strength while mitigating flexibility and agility risks. Honestly, we're probably talking about a guy who's like a 3rd round, maybe 4th round pick, but keep your eye on him because, again, he fits the bill of what Howie Roseman typically looks for in drafts. Having said that, obviously not every single pick fits the description, and, sometimes you just go more so based off the eye test, which Howie has also done previously. FYI, Eli Ricks tested actually a bit worse than Starks and ranked as one of the slower and less agile players in his class. Yet I hear you, I know he also wasn't a projected first-round pick and ultimately ended up as an undrafted free agent. So, kind of a big difference there. Although according to Ruben Frank, no one should be forgetting about Eli Ricks, with Ruben admitting that the job is likely to be Kelee Ringo's to lose. Yet when you consider the fact that Ricks played 301 snaps as an undrafted rookie, Howie Roseman kept him around for a reason. And heck, in that rookie season, Ricks was targeted 36 times while also allowing only 18 completions, which for the record, that 50% completion percentage was the 9th best number in the entire league. Granted, on the flip side, Ricks definitely gave up some big plays at times, but if Fangio or Christian Parker or even Howie didn't feel like there was at least the slightest hope to him panning out, then they wouldn't have kept him on the 53-man roster despite playing just 14 snaps last season. Now, I'm not going to lie, I expect Ricks to make the roster, but I'm also not necessarily expecting him to play a significant role on this team. But, maybe we get to training camp, he gets some first-team reps, and then he just runs away with it. Again, I'm personally not thinking that'll be the answer. Yet it's at least noteworthy considering here you have multiple beat writers in Reuben Frank and John McMullen who have said that they expect Ricks to be an intriguing dark horse candidate for the Eagles' cornerback competition. I don't know, are you buying that, or is Kelee Ringo the answer, or do you add someone else through the draft? Or heck, I guess we can throw in trading because you never really know.
One thing that I can promise our fans is that there will not be a player that's available that we won't study, that we won't look at and see if it can help the team. Sometimes those opportunities work and you're able to do that, and sometimes they don't.
Come on, I've seen the reports from Ian Rappaport that the Dolphins and cornerback Jalen Ramsey are mutually set to explore trade options. However, that is not going to happen with him coming to Philly, so you can just go ahead and cross that one off the list. It's not that Ramsey can't still make some plays. He can definitely do that. But considering you've got a 30-year-old corner with a massive cap hit you have to take on is way too much of a risk. And I didn't even get into the issue with the morale or locker room vibes that aren't worth bringing him in. Remember, this was the same guy who called out Fangio for misusing his corners back when he was in Miami. Personally, for me, I look at it like this. We have one of the best cultures and one of the best locker rooms in the NFL. Now, say what you will about C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Why was he traded away? Perhaps something there. But you still look at this squad and say they all fight for each other. There's a selflessness. There's not a about-me mentality. Those guys are not going to hang around. So Jalen Ramsey, it's just not worth the risk. Even if you think he's the guy and he can still play, it is not worth the risk to all of a sudden have someone in the locker room divisive or anything like that. So I am 100% stay away. Do not make a trade there. If anything, just trade in the draft and go get some youth that's going to help you. Which, for the record, sounds like something Howie Roseman is very much considering on draft night.
To understanding that there was opportunities to maybe get aggressive. With that also comes risk, right? All those moves don't always work out, and it's probably more conservative to just stand pat, stay where you are, whether it's with players on your team or during the draft, and kind of see what comes to you. When you trade up in a draft, you got to deal with the consequences of who ends up being there with the slot you move out on. And sometimes you say, man, I could have sat there and got this player. And so you have to deal with that too. For me, I think that being aggressive has always been part of my DNA, and feel fortunate that I have the people around me who support that, Coach, Jeffrey, and it allows us to take chances and to try to be aggressive.
Look, I'm starting to come around on the idea of trading up. Although when it comes to Brandon Graham returning to the Birds, he did clarify his comments from last week when he was on the Up and Adams show and said he was 90% retired.
I'm at peace, man. I just seen her segment before. I was just, me, man, it ain't nothing going on right now. I just wanted to talk some stuff.
Our guy, people picked up on it. By the way, people would be us, by the way.
Yeah, I knew I could throw some bait out there and get them talking. But that's why I laughed when Hugh had said what he said. I was like, I get it, Hugh. I ain't having no hard time. I'm really just more of just trying to enjoy the journey of the hard parts of, man, now I got a week, man, before I got to move my locker. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all those little things. But I am happy with my decision, man. I really do feel the game don't owe me anything, and I don't owe the game nothing. I've proven myself on the pick. Thankful that things turned around. Happy for the success of others that we wanted, and that we all, had some success in our own way. And for me, I'm just thankful to be a part of this because, especially the journey of when people wasn't believing, we changed it, and we went out there and we worked, and that's what it gets you. Hard work gets you that, and it's gonna help me in my next endeavors every day. Just the journey. Talk to yourself in a positive way other than a negative, because it ain't gonna help you. but I know it's hard.
Okay, look, we all want BG back, and I'm not going to say it's a 0% chance, but it's probably very unlikely that he comes back next season. Now, this other topic is also just a rumor, but let's just go ahead and address the TJ Watt Eagles rumor while we're here. No, the Eagles are not getting him, and there's nothing definitive out there despite what you may have heard. Come on, this is what always happens. Not a whole lot of hard news, so some writer puts together a hypothetical list of suitors and somebody runs with it. And sure, I get the argument that Philly were apparently in the running for the Myles Garrett trade. So yeah, you think about TJ Watt as another option, potentially available, contract situation. Like, yeah, who wouldn't want to add him to this defense? After all, Watt is probably a better scheme fit than Garrett due to his ability to drop in coverage. Now sure, yes, it's not like he does it a lot, but he does have 7 interceptions and has dropped into coverage 539 times throughout his career. Plus, it's not like you're expecting Watt to start massively declining anytime soon. I mean, look, nothing's impossible, especially how we've seen Howie Roseman work over the last couple of years, and you think about adding Watt with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, and others, that is terrifying. Yet he would cost a fortune to trade for, and then you also got to pay him, which might jeopardize some of the other younger contracts you got to pay. Either way, that's why right now it's just more so the realistic part of this is that it's all speculation, and that's all it is. Now, if we get any sort of solid reporting on this and it becomes something more than just a rumor, then of course, yes, I'll be going live, so make sure to turn those notifications on, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until next time, this has been The Philly Special.